Hey guys, this is Dr. John Michael Salvato, your organic living and peak performance coach, and you're watching the Peak Performance Blueprint. It is Monday, the 15th of August, and today is the beginning of a great week. Last week we talked about the identifying our fears, identifying the root causes of our fears, and really coming to terms with those things that are obstacles in our path, and recognizing that those things are really all just chaotic data. This week, we're taking that next step. We're going to be releasing our fears, and today we begin by embracing our vulnerability. And when I posted that in the blog, I posted Vulner and then in parentheses, ability, because within your vulnerability there is an untapped potential to discover new abilities, new potentiality in your life. So I'm really excited about that. For those who are tuning in for the first time, our Mind Shift Mastery series happens on Monday through Thursday at 12 noon Eastern Time. On Fridays, we have a sort of a spiritual focus. That's at 1:30. That's called Inner Alchemy, 1:30 Eastern Time. And every single day, we try to focus on one small shift that we can make in our mindset that can actually begin to set into motion dramatic improvements, changes, and peak performance in all aspects of our lives. And so today, as I said, we're going to talk about this idea of fear. And so I thought what I would do is, there's a number of different ways that we can look at fear. Of course, we've all heard the wonderful anagram that fear, or acronym, I'm sorry. I have to actually change that. I think I put anagram in the blog too. The acronym that says that fear is false evidence appearing real. Or humorously noting that perhaps the idea of fear came from prehistoric times when fear meant F everything and run. But I would like to say that for our purposes, we're going to start with from a little bit different perspective. We're going to go to something that I find very useful that we're going to be talking about in the new year, and that is A Course in Miracles. And in A Course in Miracles, they sum up fear very nicely. They say nothing can be threatened, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of your true nature, and herein lies the peace of God, or by whatever term you choose to recognize that essential unity. And so that's the foundation from which we're going to talk about fear, because if fear is in fact false evidence appearing real, fear occurs when we are projecting chaotic data from the subconscious mind. That chaotic data could be based on past experiences that we've interpreted through the often cloudy lens of past beliefs and fears and ideas. It could be a projection that comes from our thinking that we have all the right knowledge to know exactly what is going to happen in the future. It's imagining that we actually have a great grasp on all of what I like to call the what ifs. And so for that reason, we can recognize and come together today and recognize that fear is based on false evidence. Fear is not reality. Fear is something that's based on our thinking that we know what's coming. And so I want to make a clear distinction, because this is what will often mess people up or throw them off. They say, well, fear is not always based on false evidence, because if there's a tiger in a tree getting ready to pounce, and I'm afraid, then I have good reason to be afraid. Being afraid is not the same thing as fear. Recognizing that there is danger is actually understanding the situation. And so what happens is, when we're in legitimate danger, our cortisol levels rise, and we get that fight or flight syndrome that has existed since primordial times. And so that type of, and we sometimes call that fear. Unfortunately, our command of using words to communicate effectively isn't always 100% intact in humanity in general, but particularly in English. And so there's a tendency to use that as fear. We're not talking about recognizing that if you walk out into the middle of traffic that you could get run over. because that's not, we could call that a legitimate fear, but let's not use the word fear. That's based on understanding the laws of physics, that if you step out into traffic, those cars are not going to magically stop and avoid hitting you. And so that's based on understanding. We think that when we're afraid, let's say we're starting a new business, we're walking away from a job, we're starting a new relationship, the fears that arise then feel the exact same way, because that part of our brain that handles fear doesn't know the difference between the tiger in the tree and the monster under our bed. You know, that fear feels the exact same way, and it's treated the exact same way. The cortisol levels, as we talked about last week, rise the same way to legitimate fears and illegitimate fears. So what we're talking about this week is we're talking about releasing the fears that are not based on a legitimate or accurate understanding. So we'll talk a little bit about some of these things. You know, for me, there was a time in my life not very long ago. I had a conversation with somebody with whom I've been very close for over 25 years, and we've had a rocky relationship, and I could never understand why. I just knew that there was something there that would always allow us to get to a certain point, and then we ended up having a fight or a disagreement, or and we wouldn't talk for 5 years or 7 years or 8 years, and then we would start things back up again. And I knew that there had to be something there that was rooted in fear, because the Course tells us whatever is not love is fear. Whatever is not your true nature must be fear. So when discord arises in our lives, it's almost always arising from fear or a false understanding. And so as we began talking this most recent time of reconciling, both of us had been to a point in our lives, or had come to a point in our lives, where we started to recognize and deal with those fears, and recognize what they had, what they had in common, recognize what was their inspiration, where did that chaotic data come from. And this time around, the relationship is completely different. There's not a competitiveness that existed in the past between us. There's not all of the fears that existed of is this person going to abandon me? Is this person going to try to outdo me? Is this person going to try to make me look bad? All of those things are gone, because we've now, instead of coming together in that place where we both had shared fears because of experiences that happened to us in our past that we'd never communicated with one another, they were profound instances of being sexual abuse survivors. And so those aren't the kind of things that guys sit around and talk about. And so we were keeping those things to ourselves. But when we finally said, you know what, I've been dealing with this, and this is what's been coming up, and this is where I'm coming from, all of a sudden the common ground wasn't our fear, it wasn't the unspoken things, it was this recognition and love and appreciation for who one another is in each of our lives. And it's been an amazing experience. So in order to be able to reach that point, I had to overcome, and that person had to overcome their fears that the other person might say, screw you, I'm done with you. Same thing happens when you're starting a new business or a new job. Walking away from something that's not working for you, or making a decision that you have to do something in order to improve your finances is frightening. And it should be frightening, because it's unknown. So we should have apprehension of the unknown, but that should never paralyze us from taking action on a good idea. And so you've got to be able to say, you know what, this is a little bit frightening. Walking away from my previous business was a lot frightening. You don't walk away from that size of a check and worry, and not worry about what's going to happen when it comes time to pay the rent, or time to pay the electric, or time to pay for the car or the insurance or anything else. So yes, it's frightening, but the reason that I succeed is because I move through my fear, because I recognize that fear is based on false data. It's chaotic data. What if I fail? What if I fail? There's a million different things that I can do well. And you see, there's in the entrepreneurial movement, there's a group of people whose entire motivation is worrying about what other people are going to say. Oh, I don't want to get involved in another business because then people are going to know my last 17 businesses failed. So what? You know, it's unfortunate that you spent a lot of money on a lot of things that didn't work, that you didn't have a mentor to help you find things that do work. But when an opportunity or a business or a job or a career ceases to serve me well, I have absolutely no fear of moving on because I'm not worried about what anybody else is going to think. Because I know that in the long run, they're going to see, wow, that was a smart move that he made. You know, he moved away from something that wasn't working. I don't worry about jumping on board. Another great example is that, you know, I embrace new technology. You guys know that I was one of the first adopters, the first, I think, 100 people using Blab, an incredible platform for doing our live shows. We started this program on Blab. I had my weekly show on organic living. I had my weekly show on metaphysics and spirituality. I had, you know, so many different programs that I was running simultaneously on Blab, and we had over 200 hours worth of archival programs on there. So I could send somebody and say, hey, I want you to go see my friends Robert Ray and Paul Cercola down in Fort Lauderdale. You live in South Florida. They're talking about the center that they just started, and I think there's some really interesting stuff for you there. I want you to go check out my friend Joe Stewart. He's a young entrepreneur, and he was on my show, my entrepreneurial show, a couple weeks ago. And I could send people to the show. Well, you know what? I was an early adopter, and I was also one of the first people to find out that on Saturday they were pulling the plug after 11 months. Now the platform grew from 0 to 3.9 million users, but they only had about 400,000 users that were coming in every single day and using the platform, and it wasn't enough to sustain their business model. They didn't have the financing. Some of the social networks that I've been involved with, same thing. You know, I will jump on board with a social network if it looks like it's designed to really create engagement, and that has served me very well. Empower is a great example. I'm not involved with Empower because I think I'm going to get rich off of their revenue sharing. I'm not even certain that their revenue sharing is a sustainable model. It's a social experiment, and there's, you know, people from Harvard and people from Berkeley that are professors and scientists that are part of this experiment because they believe that the model can work, but it hasn't been proven yet. But here's what I do know. I know that being part of a social network that's exploding like that puts me in contact with the greatest number of people every single day. And as a result of that, I'm able to make new contacts. I'm able to cultivate new relationships. And one of the relationships I cultivated about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago with that platform is somebody who pre-enrolled in my business about an hour ago. And you see, those are the kinds of things that happen when you move beyond fear. When you say, you know what, I'm willing to take that risk because I don't have all of the information to know what's going to happen in the future. I don't even have the inclination to want to know what's going to happen in the future. And I also know that my perceptions of what happened in the past are not always accurate. So those fears are not reality. And so when we understand that, when we come to that position that says nothing real can be threatened and nothing unreal exists, the reality is that I am pure awareness, that you are pure awareness. And so nothing can threaten pure awareness. And nothing unreal exists. So all of those things that we perceive as maybe, what if, you know, that could happen, it doesn't exist. And in that moment, when you recognize that, you find that peace that allows you to engage in peak performance. Or to discover or realize peak performance, to generate peak performance, if you will, in your life. And so today, that's about that first step. It's about recognizing what fear actually is. Last week, we named all of those fears and all of the sources of fears, or some of them. This week, we need to just recognize that all of those things that we named last week don't exist. You know, the fear of what might happen in the future, the fear based on our interpretation of what happened in the past, are all based on non-reality. And when something is based on good information, here's the test. Should I become a drug dealer? Well, good information tells me no, because drug dealers, ultimately end up getting caught. They put their life at risk and can be shot at any moment, and it's dirty money. So that's not fear. The reason I'm not a drug dealer isn't based on fear. It's based on good information. And where there's good information, then that fear doesn't exist anymore. Should I walk away from my job to become a juggler? No. That's not based on a fear that I could fail. That's based on recognition that I don't know how to juggle. So there's not that isn't. I hope that makes sense. It's really simplistic to put it that way, but that's how we know the difference between fear. Now, anytime you're starting something new, a new relationship, a new job, a new business opportunity, moving to a new town, there should be a lot of excitement and a little bit of apprehension, a little bit of that kind of nervous tension. Those things aren't fear. Those are just those hormones starting to pump, and a little bit of that hormone that starts to pump when something new and exciting like that happens is that your cortisol levels increase a little bit, because there's that fight or flight syndrome that if this doesn't work, I need to be able to run, and that's just part of our human DNA. So today we want to make sure that we're not discounting this idea, saying, hey, you know what? When I'm afraid to cross the street in the middle of traffic, that's real, and so therefore everything John Michael said has no basis in truth, because fear is real. Fear serves a good purpose. That's not the kind of fear, again, that we're talking about. We're talking about false evidence appearing real. So I want to hear from you guys. I don't know how much time you had to check out the blog this morning, or to really kind of work with that material. But just what are some of your thoughts as we start this week? Let's kind of come to a place where we share where we're coming from in terms of recognizing what fear is, maybe some of your experiences in dealing with those kind of false evidence appearing real situations in your life, and then we'll, as the week unfolds, we're going to start to take steps every single day some of which are going to seem really simplistic, some of which are going to seem like they couldn't possibly eliminate your fears. But I promise you this: if you follow those things and you put those practices to work for 5 or 6 or 7 days, then incredible stuff starts to happen in your life. Because some of these techniques I'm going to share with you, I thought were pretty stupid when I first heard them. I didn't see how they were going to possibly work. They didn't even seem psychologically sound. But let me tell you something, that when you start to speak to that part of your mind, to the prefrontal cortex, in a way that, because it doesn't differentiate between what's real and what's imagined, or what's real and what's visualized or perceived, incredible stuff starts to happen in your life. So guys, let me hear from you. And unmute yourself if you need to do that, because I've got everybody muted.
Well, Sandy,
Hey.
Great topic, because we are surrounded by the media and people who want us to be fearful and believe their ideas, and not listen to what we know to be real within ourselves. Who was it? Franklin? One of the Roosevelts, I think it was Franklin, said, "We have nothing to fear but fear itself." And whenever I start to get that little uneasy feeling, like, oh, should I be afraid here? Then I say, well, what are you being afraid of? What is causing this emotion within you? And so I try to analyze that. And I think if you go in, like with new businesses, I just recently went through a couple weeks of hard analyzing my son's business to see how much he could grow that business, how much the traffic would bear. And now he has a greater realization, because the unknown has been discovered. So that's kind of the key to a lot of things in life. When you discover the unknown and you work your way through it, and sometimes I think we have to, I love what you said about that false reality, or I don't think you called it a false reality, but a false, whatever you
False
call it,
evidence.
false evidence. Yeah, whatever you do. Yes, false evidence. I like that because, we base fear on so many things sometimes that aren't real. We don't know, and we anticipate because somebody else might have been afraid of it, or there's something going on somewhere. So, my gosh, that might happen to me if I go outside, or if I go to an event. But you can't. That's not the way to live your life. So, that's false evidence, and at the way I see it. I think it's important. I happened to catch Oprah's Soul Sunday yesterday, and Tony Robbins was on there. And people pay Tony Robbins thousands of dollars to go to his seminar to get rid of fear.
Yeah.
And sometimes he'll bug people if he senses that they're afraid to accept the reality of a relationship that should have ended because of oh, am I going to get another relationship? Or, oh, am I going to hurt that person's feelings? And he simply said, well, you're already hurting his feelings by being untrue or unreal to yourself and to him. If you have no intentions of continuing the relationship, then just stop it. Don't continue in it because you're afraid of the unknown. And it was interesting that I happened to listen to that, and then you're talking about, how we let our minds go, what I like to refer to, and hold your hats, because I don't want this to seem vulgar. There are many different meanings to many different words, but I call it mind masturbation, because that's what it is. You get that thought in your head, and you're going, that, and then by the time you're through, you've built it up into something that, oh my gosh, isn't real. So I love false evidence. I think that's, it seems real, but it's not real. We've just conjured it up in our brains. That's enough from me today.
That was awesome. That was amazing and awesome, and thank you so much. That really is what it is. Fear is a form of mental masturbation, and I use that term myself as well. And it's interesting that Tony Robbins was on Oprah, because Tony and I shared the same mentor, the late Mr. Jim Rohn, and that was a lot. That was the foundation of a lot of the work that Jim did with us. Was really helping us to come to terms with what fears were and how those fears were holding us back, and how, especially dealing with financial fears and thinking we're not good enough, we don't have enough. There's excuse me, people that I've dealt with and been coaching who say, I just don't know if I have what it takes to succeed in your business. Well, when we look at what is really happening, what's really on the table, I had to help unpack for them that that's based on their past experiences. And is it true that in your past experiences you didn't have a good mentor? Is it true that in your past experiences people were telling you to do stuff that didn't work? And don't take responsibility for that if somebody tells you that making a list of your friends and family, or having house parties, or the 3-foot rule, or handing out business cards to everybody with a pulse doesn't work. It doesn't work because it doesn't work, period. Those people are making shit up because they don't know what really works, and they heard from somebody that it works, and they're moving groups of people from one company to the next company to the next company, or they're just happening to bump into somebody who happened to have a group that moved people from one company to the next company. So don't beat yourself up. I try to tell these people, if you're a little apprehensive about starting a new business, because you should be. Otherwise, you're not paying attention. But the reality is there's nothing to fear. If I can show you a business model that puts 10,000 people, pre-enrolled prospects into your business in a week, if I could show you that we've put over 100 paid customers in your business in a week, then why are you afraid that this won't work? Because I just proved to you that it'll work. What you need to do now is just believe in yourself that you made the right decision, you chose to be in the right place at the right time, and this thing could really explode for you. And I'm not asking anybody in my business to think of what's this going to mean for me in 5 years, how much money am I going to make this year. I'm asking you, stay in the moment, and as we say at the end of every show, to be grateful for what you've got. Because if you're not grateful right now for what you have, for that starting point, then all of the abundance that I can bring into your business, that our team brings into your business, that you bring into your business, isn't going to change your situation. And that's where we move from that place of mental masturbation, that place of dwelling on false evidence, the what ifs, to that place of pure potentiality, which is part of our true nature. That's how we were meant to be. Jen, let's hear from you if you've got some thoughts, and I know you must.
Mom perspective, there's always, how badly am I screwing my kids up, and will they be talking to a therapist when they're 30? Speaking of, he's coming to find me. But I mean, there's always, right now we're in the when can I date thing, and it's like no, everything goes through your head because you start remembering what you were like at 14, and then you remember what boys were like when you were 14, and then you start thinking of convents and shipping her to Sicily. As a mom, well, I don't know. For me personally, we already talked about how worry equals love, and I worry about stuff, and I'm afraid of stuff that doesn't matter, and I know this. One of the biggest ones was I let the fear of my ex, who doesn't read, reading my book and realizing, oh crap, she's talking about me. And I let that book sit for so long because I was afraid he was going to read it, and then it's like, wait, he doesn't know how to read. Why am I worried about? And he doesn't know anybody that would read the book. None of my friends. It's really sad when you sit with your friends. Narcissists. Yeah, it's like, oh wait, none of you read. So why am I worried about you guys picking up this book? It's not going to happen. Let me put it out there. Yay! That kind of thing. But yeah, you do worry about the little things. In the last book I just did, I think I wrote 6 pages of a stream of consciousness that goes through my head before I go to sleep every night, of the goofy stuff that I fear is going to happen to my family. Is my roof going to hold up during this next storm? Is my air conditioning going to stay up? This is stuff that doesn't matter in the long run. It really doesn't matter, and yet it's the stuff that keeps me up at night. It's so ridiculous. And then there's the other things like, how are we going to pay for college, and how big is that spider that I know is under my couch still? That kind of thing. It's like it really is absolutely ridiculous to let fear of things that really don't matter hold you in place. So yeah, if I could take a step from my own book and step out of fear and write that book, or for other people it's going to be start that business. For some people it might be having a kid. Take a chance, get married, buy that house. Do all those things that do scare you, because that's when you can grow and be more of the human being you were meant to be in that moment. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think that there's some really good points there in that we don't know what the future holds. So, what if we get involved in that relationship and it doesn't last forever? So many people allow that to hold them back from the relationship. But what if in the next 5 years you have some incredible experiences together? And I've had relationships in the past that somewhere in the future, 6 years later, that person said, I want out. Okay, that didn't negate the 6 years of great times that we had. It was just time that our journeys go in a different direction. Same thing with your jobs. Same thing with your spirituality. So many people stay stuck in life in their spirituality because I don't want to leave the church, because if I leave the church, then people are going to talk about me. Here's a news flash: people are going to talk about you no matter what. They're talking about you now. So let go of the worry about what people are going to say. When your point, Jen, about the book, about well, what's your husband going to say? Here's a news flash: narcissists think everything's about them. So it's not going to be no big surprise that they think that the book is about you, because they think that every book that they've ever written is about them. So it's, you can't allow those things to paralyze you from moving forward, and can't allow you to deprive yourself of the joys that can come. Maybe you're sitting here today watching this program and you're thinking about writing a book, and Jennifer just inspired you, and you think, yeah, maybe I should write that book. Don't take that next step and think, oh, but I might not write as well as her. I might not speak as well as her. I'm going to have her education or her creativity or her experiences or whatever it is. No, you might not have those things. You have your experiences, your education, your ideas. What if I get started in this new business and I haven't been doing this for 35 years like John Michael? Yeah, but you know what? That's a good thing. When I tell somebody I've been doing this for 35 years full time, when I tell somebody that for 28 of those 35 years that I was privileged to be among the top producers in our industry, they say, oh, well, sure, no wonder you could do this new business well. You've got experience. But when you tell somebody, hey, you know what? I woke up this morning, there was 8,000 pre-enrollees in my business, and 25 people placed an order, and I don't even friggin' understand the compensation plan yet. So I don't know how it happened. Guess what? People are going to be more inclined to be excited about your story. So these people, when you look at, I look back at 1981, 1982, when we were first bringing herbal nutrition to the world, and we were bringing a diet product that nobody had ever thought about using herbs to lose weight. It wasn't the people who were already, I was a gym rat at the time, so I had to work. People would look at me and say, yeah, of course you're going to talk about how great this product is. Look at you. You spend 5 days a week in a gym, 3 or 4 hours a day, and that's your social life. So of course you're going to be in good shape. But I don't have that privilege. I work and I have 5 kids and I do, But it was the woman who was overweight, who struggled her entire life with trying to get that extra 20 pounds off. It was the housewife who had 5 kids and didn't have time to get to the gym, who sold product like that because people said, hey, if this is working for you, I know it'll work for me. So don't let things hold you back in life. Yeah, the people at church might talk about you if you move on to a better community that suits your needs, because you're growing and you're evolving. And maybe you're growing and evolving a little faster than the people that you've been hanging out with. If you want to continue to grow and evolve, you need to change the people you're hanging out with, or you'll become stagnant. And yes, some of them might talk about you, but some of them might get inspired by you. So that's what I'm going to leave you guys with today. I apologize that I went just a couple minutes over, but I think this is just such an awesome topic, and that's why we're spreading it out over the entire week, because I want you guys to take some time and work with it. I'm going to try and find, there is a video, excuse me, that I really enjoyed. So after today's video on the blog, if you just give me about an hour, I'm sure I can find it on TED Talks. There was a gentleman who talked about whenever you're starting something new in your life and how you can tell that what you're starting is something that's going to be amazing. And I want to find that video because he did a terrific job. He's a peak performance coach that I've really enjoyed some of his other talks, and this talk fits in perfectly today, and I think it's going to be a good launch point for where we go with this tomorrow. I thank you guys for being with us today. I thank Sandy and Jennifer for sharing their insights, and for welcome all of you to share your insights as well on the blog. You don't have to have been here live for your opinion, your input, your shared experiences to matter. You can always share those with us in the comments on the blog. Remember that the blog is members only, so you unfortunately can't share these blog posts with the public. They have to be part of this community, and we do that for a very specific reason that I'll leave you guys with today, and that is because a lot of what we share here is very personal. A lot of what we share here is about becoming vulnerable, and within that that sense of community that we have here, in our vulnerability, we discover our abilities. But if you're just throwing it out in the general public, somebody can twist and manipulate the experience, take things out of context, and we don't want that to happen to anyone. So I'm very protective of you guys and want this to be a genuine community for you guys to gain a sense of support. So anyway, thanks for being here. Thanks for your time. Thanks for your input. And again, we encourage you to stay in the moment, to be grateful for what you have right this moment. And think about it. In this moment, you're safe. In this moment, you're healthy. In this moment, you have everything that you need. So there is nothing to fear when you're in the moment. And by staying in that moment, you open the doors for the abundance, the potentiality, the prospects and opportunity that are waiting for you. And always remember, the best is yet to come. We'll talk to you soon. Take care, guys.